though, Jim, this is all coinciding with this ruling out of China on Nvidia. What they argue is anti-monopolistic behavior regarding going back to Mellanox.
I know, it's 5 years. I remember they had left it open. Mellanox, Israeli company, great company, let them expand the data center. I totally get it. I think it's interesting, as Treasury Secretary Bessent says it's poorly timed.
Yeah, but not a coincidence, I would think.
No, I don't think it's coincidence. You issue a little statement. It's been kicking around for 5 years. I do think that there's the good relationship that the president has. I mean, wow.
What are you talking about? Good relationship?
We have a very good relationship with China. So, I mean, was it like a great relationship? I mean, I don't know.
Listen, I don't know. I mean,
Nvidia is now down less than 1%. Let's start with Nvidia. All right, Lauren, what's all this about trouble in China?
Yeah, in the middle of these trade talks, right? China's antitrust regulator says a preliminary investigation.
However, Jim, this is all happening at the same time as the Nvidia ruling from China. In reference to Mellanox, they contend that anti-monopolistic behavior is involved. I recall that they had left it open for 5 years. Allowing Mellanox, an excellent Israeli business, to expand the data center makes perfect sense. Although Treasury Secretary Bessent claims that it is ill-timed, I find it intriguing. Yes, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't believe any of these jokes. You make a brief comment that has been in circulation for 5 years. I do believe that the president has an excellent relationship. I mean, whoa, what are you discussing? A healthy partnership. There ought to be a strong rapport with China. Oh, I see. Was that a wonderful relationship? I mean, I'm not sure. Additionally, Nvidia is currently down less than 1%. Now let's talk about Nvidia. Okay, Lauren, what's this about Chinese trouble? Yes, China's antitrust watchdog claims that a preliminary inquiry revealed Nvidia had broken anti-competition law in the midst of these trade negotiations. This relates to its purchase of Mellanox, an Israeli business 5 years ago. So why now declare an investigation? Is China sending a message while it still has options in the trade negotiations? Nvidia's stock is down less than 1%. However, given that China claims it violated its rules, how can it sell its chips there? How is business conducted in China? Indeed, that is a valid question. It claims that it is already not conducting business in China, but yet, all right, the trade negotiations, the trade agreements, TikTok, and everything else are finished. How do you interpret this? What China is saying about this regulatory issue isn't, in my opinion, the much more important topic regarding Nvidia. Is competition from China imminent? Are they producing competitively priced chips? Is the positive news already priced into the valuation? And this is the aspect that investors don't seem to want to discuss, regardless of whether it's Apple, Nvidia, or Tesla. Is it possible to be correct that a business is doing well while being incorrect about the stock price? That occurs frequently, and I believe it to be extremely dangerous. What if you had a warning from your desk before your retirement was erased? Your retirement account could be wiped out overnight if you don't purchase this package. Because there are only 100 pieces available, order yours right away using the link below. Lauren, why are all the chip businesses down? China is conducting another probe. Thus, analog devices, on Semiconductor and Texas Instruments all drop by up to 3%. In contrast to Nvidia's AI chips, these companies provide semiconductors for the automotive and industrial sectors. China is now investigating thus, our chip manufacturers are the focus of those two inquiries. As they say, tensions are growing. At the moment, we are examining Nvidia. Units down over 2%. Yes, exactly. Indeed, it appears that the Chinese government is exerting even more pressure on these negotiations. According to the local authorities, Nvidia broke anti-monopoly rules. Following a preliminary investigation, the market regulator made this one-sentence statement, stating that it has also chosen to carry out more legal examination into the incident, deepening that antitrust investigation so successfully. This now occurs as the United States and China are in Madrid for continued discussions, with 2 other investigations, one against discrimination in the U.S. and another against dumping of American analog. IC chips. The government seems to be playing hardball. As I said, Texas Instruments and Analog Devices is anticipated to be impacted by those investigations as well as the latter one. Additionally, the belief that the Chinese government would like to keep supporting domestic chips led to a surge in Chinese chip plays here in Asia. It appears that some progress has been made in the trade talks. Frank had said there was development. Secretary Besson had really told reporters that an agreement with China on TikTok was very close. Frank, okay, those TikTok deals will undoubtedly attract a lot of attention. I want to return to this study in the U.S. semiconductor industry, though, Eunice, as you indicated, Texas Instruments and Nvidia are being impacted this morning. It is a preliminary probe, according to all the headlines. When can we anticipate receiving the final results? Frank, there's not much clarity. In my opinion, the Chinese are making a concerted effort to target many of these chip plays, which they regard as putting pressure on these conversations. On the one hand, China needs these chips, therefore there has been much debate over whether or not this makes sense for them. They don't produce them on their own. However, since they know that it will be more harder to displace these chips if they, like Nvidia, become well established, they may not necessarily want these chips. Naturally, the Chinese government's long-term objective is to establish their own domestic chips as the industry standard. Okay, so what does all of this spending mean for Nvidia? And how do you at least envision things developing over the coming years? I firmly believe that people still want to imagine that hyperscaler investment is unabated in the immediate run. It will continue indefinitely. Furthermore, the entire anti-monopoly dispute is merely a negotiation to try to obtain the Blackwell chips that China desires. Therefore, I believe President Trump will approve that. After a final spike in the stock, I believe there will be a problem in 2026 when some of the smaller AI companies discover they are unable to raise money on the private markets. And I believe that's when problems arise. Furthermore, I dislike deals that I see, such as those with CoreWeave, where you might say, hey, you know what? We'll buy that capacity back from you if you go ahead and buy all of our chips, and none are used. To be honest, I don't like seeing things like that. So we'll see how things work out next year. But I'm seeing an increasing number of such agreements, and that doesn't seem like a good omen to me at least. In the midst of trade negotiations, there is also a semiconductor-related issue where China claims Nvidia violated antitrust laws and is initiating a semiconductor investigation. Of course, in addition to the 2 semiconductor probes and the Nvidia news that were released over the weekend, the U.S. is also taking some action of its own, including requesting that Europe increase duties on China over Russian oil and adding additional companies to the blacklist. However, my interpretation of all of this is that, in the big picture, these trade disputes are rather small. And I kind of see it as both sides putting on a show in anticipation of a potential summit, saying things like, we want to play nice. We want this to happen. But before we can agree to it, we need to see some tangible outcomes. And if we don't understand it, they're practically planning things in the background that could make the relationship worse again if they don't get their way. After Chinese officials revealed today that Nvidia had broken one of their antitrust laws with its 2020 acquisition of Mellanox, the stakes in U.S.-China trade negotiations have increased even further. In today's Tech Check, our Christina Partsina-Velos goes into further detail about that. KP, they're regressing on this one. Indeed, they are. 5 years, then, as you mentioned, China's market watchdog declared this morning that Nvidia had broken anti-monopoly laws. However, antitrust isn't really at issue here. Leverage is the key. As you point out, Carl, Beijing started this investigation in December, a week after Washington announced stricter export regulations for chips. It also conveniently publicized the violation today, just as the U.S.-China trade talks are taking place in Madrid this week. The 2020 Mellanox acquisition by Nvidia, which China approved with restrictions 5 years ago, is the subject of the alleged infringement. So why take action now? Posturing solely to obtain bargaining leverage, as you can see, shares are down more than 1.5%, and the selling pressure is evident throughout semiconductors, even though Nvidia has not yet commented on this report. AI excitement caused the SOX index to rise almost 4% last week, but that rally may now appear vulnerable.